We're live,
Hi,
Facebook.
everybody.
Here's Veronica Mosey. You've seen her. You've seen her on Late Night. You've seen her on Comedy Central. Veronica, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Hope you're doing well.
Hey, I'll take off my Jewish cat lady glasses. What's going on? And you're out there where the pandemic has really been, you're in New York, so.
Actually, I moved. I was very lucky. I moved in December to New Jersey. I got the American dream. I was making really good money doing a comedy producer work, and then lost my job and possibly could lose my home in the next year. Woohoo!
Wow, is that ever great material?
Yeah, I guess so. Oh my gosh, scary, but yes. So I'm in New Jersey, where I guess the numbers are still really high or whatever. But yeah, we're out here.
Awesome. Talk to me about you growing up, knowing you're funny, the coming of age, coming of comedy age for you. How did that happen for you?
Well, I always, yeah, I mean, I was told since I was a kid, I was really funny. That happens when you have a mom who's a rageaholic and a dad who falls asleep on the couch every night. But, you know, whatever, that's all. No, I'm just kidding. If anybody's watching, it's not true. Totally, totally true. Anyway, no, I think my brothers, I have two older brothers. We were always joking around and laughing together. And, you know, then when I was in high school, I decided to do musicals. I was a real nerd. I was about 215 pounds, and I was not a looker. And the only way I got by was my sense of humor. And so I started doing, you know, the musical theater program at school in high school. And then I decided to major in musical theater when I went to college. And then when I moved to New York, I totally got my ass kicked in these auditions. So, I mean, I'm a great, you know, decent singer, but I can't really dance very well. And so I had always had people tell me, you're really funny, you should try stand-up. So I took a one-day workshop and I got up and I did really well. And then I did really well again, and then I bombed a bunch of times. And here we are 24 years later. So
Wow, 24
yeah,
years of dedication. That's amazing.
yeah.
Thank you for your service to comedy.
I consider myself an essential worker. I will say that.
Thank you. I've seen her kill at Broadway. I know you probably aren't aware of it, but I was on a show you were headlining.
Oh, okay.
So I got to try to make people laugh at the beginning because I'm kind of new at it.
Okay.
Yeah, I got in comedy at 63 just so I could say I'm a young comic.
Nice. That's great. Well, I really believe that sometimes when you start older, I think people, they know themselves really well. So it's actually not a bad thing to start later on because you're not worrying about figuring out who you are.
Yes, absolutely. So then you get on stage, and who all has helped you that you want to give a shout out to, or how did your trajectory on stage get you to where your bio is like one of the most real, authentic bios with no hype in it? You are some fearless person on stage doing comedy, and you are one of the women out there to watch, one of the comedians out there to watch.
Thank you. You know, I have to say it's really my peers along the way. I mean, women like Jessica Curson really inspired me. You know, Laurie Kilmartin, great writer and comedian who I used to watch and be inspired by. You know, I was doing stand-up at a time when I started in May of 1996, and it was when you really had to bark, which was, you know, hand out flyers on the street, or you had to see if you could bring audience members in. People still do that now, but there was you know, definitely a more solid audition process for clubs. It was a little easier in that aspect. We didn't have social media to push us along as far. So you had to be seen in person. And basically, the first person who gave me my break was Lucian Hold, who is no longer with us. He was the booker at the comic strip Live. And yeah, I auditioned for him. And once I got in there, and then it was, you know, then it was Stand Up New York, and then it was Gotham Comedy Club, and then finally onto the Comedy Cellar. So, and then once I got into the Comedy Cellar, that was really when I met more contacts to get me better gigs. And that's one of the advantages of working there, is that you get to work with people who are very talented and who have a lot of connections. So yeah, probably the Comedy Cellar is definitely the spot to be. So
You're a regular at the Comedy Cellar. I've seen
yeah.
you. I've been out there barking, seeing your name on the billboards.
Yeah, it's a great club. I mean, and it's, you know, the fact that there are three of them now is amazing. I really hope we get back into this. Apparently phase 3 has now been postponed. Frankly, I just feel like, you know, we should just risk it. It's like, listen, I need to make money and these people want to laugh. So, but you know, it's been frustrating, but at the same time, I think that particularly the Cellar is going to be fine. I really believe that, because I think once
Good.
people are kind of past, I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if it's going to go away or whatever. I don't want to make any speculation here where I get people attacking me, but you know, once the clubs open up again, people are going to be waiting in lines around the block as they normally do. So
Yes, absolutely. I can't wait for New York to come back. I'm here in Vegas. I'm anxious for the big clubs to get going. The little off the beaten path places, that have not in casinos are open,
okay.
but that's touch and go every day.
Yeah,
So
I mean, the thing is that the capacity, I was telling a couple of friends I did the Comedy Cellar roundtable the other day, and a nightmare that I had was that I was performing at the Village Underground, and I was performing on the floor because there was no stage. And then the only person there was the piano player because the social distancing, the drummer wasn't allowed. And then the club was at 30% capacity. I don't know why I knew that number, but it was one of those dream things. And it was the nightmare that I think it will be if clubs go back to 30% or 40% capacity. I think it's going to be really difficult for comedians to enjoy that. So unfortunately, we're so reliant on crowds. I mean, the crowd, that tightness of the crowd is what makes stand-up work.
yes, it is. I'll say. Now, I didn't get into where you grew up. I'd love to know where you grew up and who
I grew up
thought you were funny young, as a
I grew up
young.
in New Jersey. I grew up in Morris County, New Jersey. I was born in Connecticut, raised in New Jersey, and I went to school in Pennsylvania, and then I moved to New York.
Did people know you were funny? Because, like in high school, nobody thought I was going to be anything but a comedian. I had
Yeah,
no skills.
yeah. I think people. Yeah, I was always funny. I was always the person. I was always in trouble. I mean, I from the time I was like in first grade, I always had detention. I couldn't help it. I had to make a comment about the teacher or whatever was happening in the classroom, and I got in trouble a lot.
Do you have a funny story or a crazy story from when you've been on stage that you will never forget happened when you were at a club?
Geez, I'm trying to think about. Well, I do a joke about the Women's March. I sort of poke fun at some of my lovely ladies carrying like really like gross signs and things like that. And then this woman came up to me after a show, and well, she actually stood up like right towards the end of my set and was like, "I marched, and you need to understand women now." And I was like, "Well, you marched for the right for women to speak, correct? So thank you. And you can just keep marching out of here." And that was actually really fun. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of moments. Robert Schimmel was a really great comic that I think many young people should look up and watch his stuff. He was really great storyteller. And for me, one of the best moments was when I got to warm up his, he had a Showtime special. And when I got out and I just did my stuff, and then I went backstage and I was the one saying, you know, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Robert Schimmel." And he comes out and then he turns around and he looks and he goes like this, and I was like this, and I was looking behind me. And he was like, "Yeah, come here, come here." So I went out on stage and he was like, "Can we just give a round of applause to this incredible talent here?" And I was like, "Oh my God." Like I started crying. It was really moving. It was really cool because I was a huge fan. And yeah, watch his stuff, young
I
people.
will. I will. I'm not young, but I'm a young
And
comic.
you know, more mature ladies.
Yes, yes. So if you were to, you just gave a tip to younger comics, but if you were to say something not to do that drives you nuts when young comics come up and suck the life out of you, what would tell young comics what they do that drive veteran comics nuts?
I think trying too hard to be something instead of just being yourself. Have some faith in your gut feelings, and the sooner you can nail down exactly how you feel and not apologize for it on stage, the better your material is going to be. Because there's nothing worse than someone who's trying to be the next Louis or the next Chris Rock or whatever. It's like, just be yourself, because those guys made it because they were who they were. So yeah, and don't drink a beer. I can't stand that. If you have a 5-minute set, don't hold a beer or a glass of water, a bottle of water on stage. You don't need to quench your thirst in 4.5 minutes. It's ridiculous. And you're wasting like 30 seconds of your time just to stop and drink. So that annoys me.
Hilarious. That's hilarious. That's funny. There are so many silly mistakes newer comics make. And then we go back and look, and when we get smarter and we go, geez, I can't believe I did that. So yeah, anything you can tell people not to do is a help.
Yeah. I mean, listening is a big one. Listening to the crowd, hear them. If you ignore them, they're going to ignore you. They'll ignore you back. They'll recognize that you're not paying attention to them. And that's why people love comedians who, people say they connect with comics, because it's a conversation. Stand-up is a conversation. It is not you blurting a monologue at people. It is you speaking with people. And when they laugh, they're agreeing with you. And that's the connection there. So always pay attention. And if a joke doesn't work, acknowledge that it didn't work. If the joke sucked, you can always say that. Well, good. I just want to make sure that joke still sucked, or, whatever. But pay attention to your crowd.
I love that. Thank you. One last little thing that most comedians I've asked, even ones with a lot of experience, cannot articulate what it is to read a room. It's like it's like the Wizard of Oz in comedy. Nobody knows what it is, but you aspire to do it. I bet you have a handle on reading a room.
I do. It all has to do with experience, right? That's the thing, is I think it is experience. When you're 20 years in and you've experienced crowd after crowd after crowd, you kind of know what's going to happen. And I think it's important to go engage the room first. If you can, stand in the back of the room, watch how the host is doing, notice what material they're doing that's working, what's not working. If all of a sudden they pull out a really blue joke, or what blue is, dirty material, and it works really well, then you might want to kind of amp it up a little bit. If you notice that it's not working, if they curse or if they touch on a certain subject, you can kind of not alter your material. That's a mistake. I don't mean to say that. I'm saying like, it's kind of like if you wanted to crack a joke in front of your grandmother, right, on Christmas Eve, right, you're going to deliver the joke probably a little differently than with your buddies at college. Then again, if you're a comedian who just wants to like drive right through the room, then you can do whatever you want. It's a matter of whether or not you want laughs. I mean, if you're going for laughs, which is your goal essentially, then you're going to have to learn how to size people up.
I love that. That's great advice. Veronica Mosey, you've been a doll to come on the Comic Spot.
Thank you.
And now that you're a graduate, you can come back anytime to plug anything you're doing anywhere in the world. I'd love you to come back and plug away.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Love you lots, even if you are in Jersey.
Thank you. Hey. All right. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Everybody's talking.